Watch the edit. All right, welcome guys. Let's begin. All right. So relationship is key. So when you're sitting with kids, and you can have dialogue, what happened, this and that. But I want you guys to have a systemized approach. So every question is layered. The first question leads to the second question, and I want you guys to practice that with fidelity because it's a process to it. A lot of times we have a conversation with kids, but you are having a restorative conversation, but it's lost because if we have the conversation, there's no data that's collected. You don't know what the kid said, it's not written down. So when you meet with that kid next time, you can actually build upon what was spoken about last time and have that approach where it's layered. Right, so you'll see it when we get into this stuff a little bit later. All right, who's in the room? Basic needs, resources, 12, one-on-one. This is what you guys said, one-on-one. 11 of you guys says that you do a lot of one-on-ones. You do some small groups, character education. So the gist of this is that you guys are in front of kids a lot, right? So if you're going to be in front of kids a lot, I need to give you guys the tools that you need to actually bring the best out of those kids and support them where they are at. All right, so welcome. Behavior is communication, consequences teach. And who can read that quote for me?
We're not doing a deep ABC training, just enough to anchor our role.
Just enough to anchor your role. I'm going to go deep because there's like a 2-3 day training on functions of behavior. We're not doing that here. So again, who can read this slide for me?
A, what sets it off?
Yes, what sets it off?
B, what we see. C, what happens next.
That's all ABC means. So if you ever hear somebody say, what are the ABCs of behavior? What happened before the behavior, which is what you saw? What happened afterwards? And I don't want you guys to think of the term consequence as something that's punitive. It just means what happens after they do this. So if a kid is disrupting the class and you attend to that kid's needs, then he may be doing what he's doing to gain attention, and then your response in giving him attention is the consequence, in a sense, right? So I don't want you guys to think that consequence is punishment. All right, again, ABCs of behavior, but we're going to concentrate on the consequence part today. Functions of behavior. All right, most students' behaviors serves one or more functions, right? When I say functions, I want you guys to say why. Functions.
Why?
Functions.
Why?
So basically it means why do they do it? So most students' behavior serves as one or more functions. Yeah, there you go. All right, so they're either trying to seek attention, escape or avoid, or they want something tangible, especially at the elementary levels. You have kids, especially like pre-K, kinder, maybe a sensory need. Like put stuff in your mouth, or like chew stuff, or like grab stuff and squeeze stuff, so it may be a sensory need. All right, so we have something that we use to try to help people understand the difference between escaping and gaining something, right? So you have eats and oats. Eats equals what the student is trying to get. So when you think of eats, like you guys are eating right now, you're getting something in your mouth. You're getting. So when you think of eats, think of you're getting something. All right? So the student is trying to get something. So eat stands for escape from a task, demand a situation or a person. But if they're trying to escape that task, they usually want something. So when you think of functions of behavior, they kind of work hand in hand. Because you're not trying to escape to nothing. You're trying to escape something that's undesired to something that's desirable, right? But initially, what are they trying to do? Escape, that's for the E. The A means they're trying to get attention from adults or peers. The T for the eats, tangible, something that they can hold, feel. Or in a sensory, they may be trying to get something to help them regulate in terms of a sensory need. And then the oats stands for what? Can somebody read the oats part for me?
O, objects. A, activities. T, tasks. And S, situations.
Yes. And what does oats, what does it stand for? They're trying to do what? Trying to avoid. So eats is what? Get. Oats is what? Avoid. Okay. All right. So someone else read this functions of attention example for me.
Behavior occurs to gain attention from adult or peers. Examples: calling out, disrupting lessons, acting out when adults are busy.
What do you think this function is? Why do you think this student is doing that?
Attention.
Get attention, right? Get attention. But how would you know this in your position? Because you're not the teacher in the classroom. So what would that require for you to do? Huh? Observe them in class. Or if you cannot observe them in class, what else can you do? Ask the teachers. All right, collaboration, collaborative spirit. You got to ask questions. You got to go dig like we did. When you guys said you guys wanted a PD, we started to dig and kind of probe. Like, what do y'all need? So you got to ask questions. All right, next. Someone else read this one.
Behavior occurs to avoid a task, situation, or feeling. Examples: leaving class, refusing work, shutting down during difficult tasks.
And obviously the answer is already up there. The function is to what?
Avoid.
Right, you're trying to get away from something. And once you start to understand the whys, then you can better apply a consequence that I'm going to give you later. Because if you don't know the why, then you're kind of applying a consequence that's not connected or aligned to the specific function. Next, someone else.
Behavior occurs to get access to an item or activity. Examples: arguing for a phone, acting out to get preferred, complaining to leave class for a reward.
Yeah, so obviously this is a person that's trying to do what? Avoid or get? Get, right? So would this be eats or oats? Eats, yeah, because remember, eating, you're getting something, getting the food in your belly. Think of it that way. All right, next. All right, CIS Consequence Toolkit. Now we're about to jump into the toolkit, right? We're only going to focus on the consequence. You guys pretty much know antecedent is what happens before the behavior. The behavior is what you see. But we're going to focus on the consequence because your job is predicated on the consequence part. Different types of consequences. Can somebody read that for me?
Regulation consequences, connection consequence, reflection, skill building, reinforcement, restorative, instructional, and environmental.
Yes. Now, seems like a lot. And I'm not going to lie and say that it's not. It is. Because kids come with a lot. Am I asking you to remember all these by heart? No. That's why you're going to have a resource to take with you. So once you've done your research like a true detective, you went to the teacher, you've asked questions. You went inside the classroom, like somebody said, and observed the student. You see what's going on. Okay, I see their function is this. Okay, they're doing this because of that. Okay, so which one of these consequences do I need to go to meet the need? That's where it comes into play. You're going to have this at your disposal, but I will say this. If you do this repeatedly, it becomes something that you just know second nature. You're not going to know it at first. I didn't know it at first. All right? All right, regulation consequences defined. And these are general. I didn't go in depth. The book has a lot of stuff. I just picked two little bullets and said, I'm going to keep it simple, all right? Can somebody read that for me?
A regulation consequence is a supportive response that helps a student regain emotional, behavioral, or physiological control after experiencing stress, frustration, or dysregulation.
Boom. So when you have a kid that's dysregulated, you're going to use that what kind of consequence? Regulation consequence. See, it goes hand in hand. It's appropriate. It's aligned. So when you go to a campus, you're now viewed as a valuable resource to that admin. They're like, okay, I know somebody is coming in that knows behavior to a certain degree to apply their consequence part. You're not the teacher. You're not doing the academics. You're just worried about the behavior, trying to connect with that student using restorative approaches. This is y'all, man. My mouth is dry. I had a PD earlier. I'm tired of talking.
A connection consequence is a supportive response that prioritizes strengthening the relationship between a student and a trusted adult after a behavioral concern occurs.
Yes.
Okay. The purpose of a connection consequence is to address the underlying needs driving the behavior, such as anxiety, embarrassment, peer conflict, or lack of support.
So whatever the conflict is, sorry to cut you off, whatever the conflict is, whether it's between student and teacher or student and student, you could come in with a resource and say, okay, this is what I think that's needed. All right, especially if it's between the teacher and the student, you may not have the power to make a teacher mediate or get with the child to resolve that conflict, but you can go to the admin and say, this is what I found out. And then if that admin sees that you're coming with some valuable information, your credibility goes out the roof. So whenever you prescribe something on that campus, they're going to listen to you, right? Versus I found this out, this is what happened. Okay, just be nice to the teacher next time. Y'all don't try to argue. Okay, I'm going to talk to you about your problem. We can't leave like that anymore. We got to lead with planting seeds in that soil so we can have something grow from that, right? We can't, basically our time cannot be in vain. If we're going to connect with the kid, it has to be purposeful and intentional. We have to leave knowing that we left them with something, right? Somebody else.
A skill-building consequence is a corrective response that focuses on teaching and practicing a specific skill the student may be lacking. The purpose of a skill-building consequence is to equip the student with the tools necessary to make more effective choices in the future, promoting long-term growth, accountability, and improved behavior outcomes.
Yeah, these are the kids that haven't done school. Sometimes they come into kindergarten, they haven't gone through the pre-K process, they don't know school. Teachers are frustrated. They're like, oh, Mr. Oh, he's not doing this, he's not doing this, he does this, he does this. And I'm listening to them, but in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm already kind of problem solving in my brain. I'm like, this is more of a social skill thing. Let's get the counselors involved to actually have a prescribed time of the day where we teach that social skill, right? Now, if you teach the social skill, you have to leave knowing that, okay, I've taught the skill, but when we see the skill displayed by the student, it has to be reinforced. But that's a whole nother PD for another day. So whatever we teach, we have to reinforce it. We teach ABCs, student says the ABCs correctly, we give them a high five, we give them a check, or we give them a good grade to say, yeah, you did it. That's the feedback, that's the reinforcement. We teach the skill in terms of behavior, they display the behavior we taught them. Something has to go with that. It can't just be like, they did it. Let them know that they did it, right? And you can suggest that. You can say things like that, right? That's why a lot of the times when we're called to support campuses, we work along with CIS a lot of the times with certain students.
Reinforcement consequence is a supportive response that strengthens and increases the likelihood of a desired behavior by acknowledging, rewarding, or positively recognizing it. The purpose of a reinforcement consequence is to motivate continued positive behavior through specific praise, incentives, privileges, goal tracking, or recognition.
This is just a perfect segue. I just talked about that. You teach the skill, they display the skill. You don't leave it there, you reinforce it, right? So sometimes as a CIS employee, when you come to talk to that student afterwards, you talk about their day. You have to also talk about their positives, because students, they come with challenges, but within those challenges, they still display positive things. We have to make sure that we key in on those things. We can't just be all negative all the time. So when they do something that's good, we have to highlight it, reinforce it, and sometimes a consequence of such is needed to increase the behaviors we want to see, because remember I said that earlier. Your role can either increase the behaviors we want to see or decrease the behaviors we want to see. All right, next, somebody read the restorative consequence defined for me.
A restorative consequence is a response that focuses on repairing harm caused by a student's behavior and restoring relationships within the school community. The purpose of a restorative consequence is to help the student understand the impact of their actions, take responsibility, and actively participate in repairing the damage, whether through dialogue, apology, restitution, or restorative circles.
Restorative circles, right? You can do that. It takes prep. It takes some digging. I've done it. You know, you have to dig. You have to almost be a detective, find out what's going on. So when you do make that plan, the questions that you have are just not vanilla questions. They're questions that are actually pertinent to the particular situation that you're dealing with. So restorative consequence, repairing, that's a restorative culture. That's what you bring to the campuses. We're trying to move away from that traditional approach of thinking that we got to punish the kid. Punishing kids just brings resentment. A lot of the time they just need connection. But if they know that they're in a classroom that's bigger than themselves, not being so self-centric, that what I did impacted everybody else. It's not just me. And we're going to talk about it. I tell you what, there's I forgot what the book was, but it talked about how students, they would rather, because we think that if we give them a harsh punishment, they're going to get it. A lot of times they hate talking things out. It's like, oh my God, I gotta talk about it? Yeah, talk about your feelings. We're gonna talk about how you make me feel. They don't wanna do that. They wanna bottle it in and keep it in. They'd rather you just give them something harsh and get on with it. They're striving to have that disconnect. But when you keep forcing that connection, it forces them to get out of their shell. And what happens is that they're more likely not gonna display that negative behavior because they know predictability of what's going to happen in Mr. O'Taylor's class is that we're going to end up doing a circle and talk about what you did and how it affected everybody. And how it affected you, how it affected our learning, how it didn't make this classroom a safe environment, all that stuff. They don't want to talk about that. So sometimes, if you think that doing restorative circles is like, it doesn't impact them, it does, because they don't want to have it sometimes, because they don't want to go there. So they're more likely not going to display that behavior, or they're going to want to turn it around so you can start talking about the positive things that they've done. So you can use the circle for good or for negative. It doesn't matter. But make sure that you have that restorative practice being done consistently. Somebody read the instructional consequence for me?
An instructional consequence is a corrective response that involves directly teaching, modeling, and clarifying the expected behavior or procedure after behavioral concern occurs. The purpose of an instructional consequence is to explicitly connect behavior to learning by reviewing campus or classroom expectations and providing guided practice.
Okay, so when I first started, I talked about the core values. I said every child. Remember, we're still in school. The ultimate goal of school is to learn. It's not to go to school and play. Of course, there's play to learn, but the ultimate goal is to learn. Parents want to know that when I send my kid to a classroom, my kid is learning something and they are excelling in their skill set. But what I see happening a lot is that we have teachers that teach academics and they try to separate the behavior and the academics. And I tell them all the time, there is no academics with behavior. Because if a kid's not behaving, you're not teaching anyway. And if you're not teaching, the kid's not learning. You can have something that has a veneer of academics going on. You can think in your head that you're teaching, but the data doesn't show it because the scores are still not rising. So you're not really teaching and they're not learning. So your role as a CIS person, when you come to talk to a kid and if the behavior is instructional, you have to take on a teacher role and teach the behavior like you are teaching academics. Okay, what are you supposed to do when you come into class? I talked to Mr. Sanchez, I talked to Mr. Johnson. He said that you guys are supposed to do a do now. So how does Mr. Sanchez want you to do the do now? When you walk in, what's the first thing you're supposed to do? Okay, when you're sitting down, tell me how you're supposed to sit down. As basic as that seems, you have to have them repeat that to you, because that's the process. We can't skip over those little things. So sometimes you might need a consequence that's instructional to teach them how to actually behave. We can't come with the assumption that they should already know that, so I'm going to talk about something else. No, it's not based upon your perception. It's based upon the deficit in that child. You're supposed to meet that deficit. All right? Environmental consequence. Somebody read that for me?
An environmental consequence is a response that involves adjusting the student's surroundings, structure, or setting to better support positive behavior. The purpose of an environmental consequence is to reduce triggers, increase structure, and create conditions that promote success.
Yeah, so we do this a lot. We come in, we have something called an environmental screen. We screen the environment. Because if a principal calls me and says, little Johnny is giving teacher A problems, when I go in, I'm not looking at Johnny. I'm looking at the teacher in the classroom environment to make sure that we can rule out anything that the teacher might be doing that could be triggering the student's behavior. So if the classroom environment is cluttered and there's no space to move, kids don't feel safe in there, then sometimes we have to talk to the adult and say, hey, you might want to read. Now, sometimes they get pushback. This is the way I've always done it. But it's not working. So a lot of times it's hard to get the adult to do that. But in your role, if the admin calls you, because that's what the data says, the data said that most of you guys said that you guys are called by admin referral. So the admin has to be your buddy, your side partner. You go to that admin and say, okay, this is what I found out. I think your classroom could be da-da-da-da-da. Maybe if she did this in the classroom, it would help. So when the behaviors improve in the classroom, when I do come to visit little Johnny, we can have better conversations about how their behaviors have improved. So I don't want you guys to think that your role is always to come there when there's trouble. You can also come there when there's good things happening as well. So the environment plays a key role in students' behavior.
Can you repeat that?
Repeat. What part?
The good stuff.
Oh, report.
To come back.
Oh, yeah. You got role is to come for the good stuff too, right? Sometimes pop up on them when they're doing good. Because I don't want them to associate you with, okay, I'm in trouble. So what that does indirectly, it teaches them that I need to get in trouble to get you. A lot of times kids just want to connect. You have principals who suspend kids. You have principals who, especially in the secondary level, they'll give them ISS. But yet the principals have the best relationships with kids. You say, why? But they're the ones handing out the consequences. You know why? Because they sit down and they talk. What did you do in class? You know you're supposed to be behaving. I suspend you for 3 days for having that fight. yet that kid comes back giving that principal a hug. But yet the principal's the one that wrote him up. You just talk. So it doesn't mean that you can't have consequences as a teacher. It just means that you have to make sure that you have that foundation, that relationship. But a lot of times, kids have good relationships with principals, especially the ones that get in trouble a lot, because the principals talk to them. And we don't have teachers that do that. But in your role as a CIS person, you have that liberty. You're not going there with a curriculum bag to teach a whole curriculum. You're just going there to talk to kids. But I want you guys to come in with tools. Come in there like a worker ready to go to work. Okay, this is what's happened. Maybe this kid may need regulation consequence, or maybe they may need instructional consequence. And even if you apply the wrong consequence, I'd rather you apply the wrong consequence than don't apply anything at all, right? So this is pretty much, yeah, you just go through this, just go to the next. Okay, no, go backwards, I'm sorry. Okay, so regulation consequence. So, okay, I'm gonna give you guys, okay, go back again. I want it to be blank because this is the answer that showed up now. Okay, I messed up with that. Okay, so just pop out. You're not wrong or right, doesn't matter. So, what situation might happen with a student that might require the student to need regulation consequence? Huh? A crisis, yes. A crisis, because they may be emotionally dysregulated at that time. What else may cause you to use a regulation consequence?
Change of routine.
Change of routine. That predictability aspect of students wanting that predictability when that's off, they get kind of sort of dysregulated. Not all kids, but the ones that need that support, you may need to insert that. Okay, those are good examples. Go on to the next one. Actually, the answer's here. It tells you. It says regulated with purpose. So here, if a kid has like a sensory need conversation, co-regulation conversation science. So this is basically telling you what you can do. But I like the fact that you guys gave me examples. But you guys are going to have this later for the activity that we're going to do. So I kind of want them to see this. But go ahead and put the next one. All right. So connection consequence. What behaviors might require connection consequence?
Skipping class.
Thank you. Somebody said, who said skipping class? Good, skipping class. Lack of connection. I don't feel like it's important to come to class. I'm going to just skip, right? We have something called a 2x10 that we encourage teachers to use, but you can do it as a CIS person. It may not be 10 consecutive days, but at least you're connecting with that kiddo, right? And encouraging them and then talking to that teacher to connect with them like you're connecting with them, that it works, right? So yeah, skipping. What else?
Chronic absenteeism.
Chronic absenteeism, yes. Truancy, stuff like that, right? All those things, connection of, yes ma'am.
Could you elaborate more on truancy when our students don't have control attendance because the attendance is actually the factors could be the parent that is because we you know we really talking to oh but you're late and what's going on, but sometimes the factors is not really the student itself, it's a minor.
Yeah.
They cannot bring themselves to school on time, sometimes it's really dependent.
The parents.
We address that.
Okay, now that we call that in behavior, we call that setting events, right? Setting events are events that occur that are outside your control, but you can influence it, right? You can, and as your role, you can talk to the admin. The admin would be the ones reaching out to the parents, just talk to them to how important attendance is, and how them coming late is part of that dysregulation because they're coming in the middle of the day. Kids are already in their motion, and now the kids like, okay, where do I fit in now? So it's just a communication thing because we can't, especially in our role, we can just speak to it like you just spoke to it. Okay, we know that it's not little Johnny's issue. He's not the one driving the car. He doesn't have a license. He can't get around by himself. It's what the parents are doing. It's not his doing. He wants to come to school on time. He just can't because of what the parents are doing. And a lot of times campuses know this. So your role, if you can bring it out and talk to that and speak to that, because when you talk to kids, they'll tell you, yeah, I wake up at 6, I gotta do this, but my mom gotta take my daughter. You know, they'll tell you their story. They'll tell you why. They're very honest. And then once you get that information, you can pass that information on to the admin. Admin can communicate with the parents and say, hey, you work on getting your kids here on time because it's really hurting them academically and behaviorally as well. So that's your role. That's as far as it can go with us.
But sometimes it doesn't work. I've been doing lately
Yeah.
visits all this time and it's for the parent.
Yeah.
You know, I've been to a house already 3 times and she practically laughs at me in my face
Yeah.
because there's no consequence for the parent.
There's no consequence for the parent. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that's where, for elementary, that's where I'm struggling with, and the principal telling me, well, what else can we do?
Yeah.
What else can I do? So now I go to the home visits with the police officer. Once they see that, I've been kind of seeing more movement on the parent because the police officer is next to me.
Yeah.
But that's been my issue, and it's been like that. So I know years ago,
Yeah.
they used to do truancy, give court dates, give tickets, and now that's not happening. So the parent is literally looking at me like, so what you gonna do?
What you gonna do? Yeah.
Exactly. So we need to get back to that part, because unfortunately I do say, well, next time he's gonna write some ticket.
Yeah.
And I kind of got his support, like, yeah, let her know, where I'm gonna write her ticket, and the kid doesn't know.
Yeah.
But but if it continues and he doesn't write tickets.
Then it's like, yeah.
What happens with that? There's no
Yeah.
balls around.
Yeah, and then they come, and then
Just
just
then
like,
they're just gonna be like, yeah, bet.
I know, right? Yeah.
So that's
Go
where
ahead.
I'm at.
I was just gonna say, then they come to high school, the parents want us to work miracles, but in
Exactly.
elementary, it was a joke.
I see what you're saying. By the time they get there, yeah. Yeah. That's true.
So that's what.
Yeah.
I kind of had conversations with my director to ask her what are the extent of the consequences, because I'm not going to threaten per se outside of that,
Right.
because then I have no control of that. But I also think for me, I try to build on positive relationship with parents outside of before the problem, or if so that when or if the problem does happen, then there's already relationship there. So even if I am doing the tardies, I'm not addressing tardies all the time. Sometimes I'm addressing you've had a rough week, or I'm addressing other things other than the tardies, so that
Yeah.
it could be easier to discuss.
That's a very, very good approach to have. Implementing that, the same thing we ask for teachers to do with students, you almost have to think of it the same way with parents. And of course, they know that they're being late all the time or not bringing their kids to school consistently, like a laugh in your face kind of thing. So them hearing that doesn't even impact them. It's almost like we almost have to have a paradigm shift with, okay, we're gonna call them and communicate something. Like the day that little Johnny does come to school, maybe calling parents to let them know that they did something great. Just kind of building that connection of, we want your child here, they're doing great. But I mean, you can only do so much. At the end of the day, it's a relationship thing. It can't be 100% the school. The parent aspect, the home aspect has to meet us halfway to a certain point to make it work. Because I can't want your kid at school more than you want your kid at school. You know what I mean? Yes.
I think, to everyone's point, I think it's also really about having an honest conversation. And I think some of the tools that you'll get to later where we have restorative conversations, maybe there's some things going on at the home that the parent won't divulge to us, but we're able to create a space where we can talk open and honest. Maybe that can break some of the barriers. And to your point, when that kid does show up, let's celebrate it like it was no tomorrow, because maybe it turns from the kid saying, I don't want to, mommy, I want to go to school, right? Maybe that can help shift the parent. But there's so many things that are beyond our influence of control that we just continue to do the best we can with the resources we have. Because an empty threat is just as bad, like saying we're going to do this, and then we actually can't. I worked a few years ago with the judge who did say we're going to decriminalize truancy because we want to interrupt the school to prison pipeline. And that was pre-COVID, but we know that since COVID has happened, that's only exacerbated along with all the other things that are going on, which we're all aware of. So just kind of keep that in mind. That really is about having an open and honest conversation and allowing the parent to kind of talk through what is really going on, so that we can intervene, or if we don't have the answers, we can reach out. If we need to reach out to community youth services for certain things, we can help meet that need, because some parents just don't know what resources are available, or they're afraid for other reasons. And I'll just leave that there.
And good feedback, guys. We already talked about, go to the next one. I don't want you to see that. That's a reflection consequences. What behaviors might require a reflection consequence? It's actually on there. It tells you.
Conflict with other students.
Okay, conflict with other students, yes, because you want to reflect on what happened. Yes, that's a good one.
Student conflict
student conflict with teacher, yeah. Sometimes teacher conflict with students. Sometimes adults are in the wrong too. And when you get to the point where an adult can actually tell a kid, look at that child in the eye and say, I'm sorry for doing X, Y, Z, that's huge. Because now you humanized yourself, right? That I can make mistakes as well. So you actually allow the child to be more freely and operate, knowing that, okay, you make mistakes, I can make mistakes too, and we can work together to make this work. All right, next. Yes. Yeah, so skill building consequence. All right, give me an example of a time where you might need to use that skill building consequence. Think of social skills.
I see often in my school that sometimes kids say things that they don't mean to teachers. Sometimes they're disrespectful, or like they don't have a filter. So sometimes I work with them with kind of like, before it comes out of your mouth, you think about it before it comes out.
Yes.
Say something you can't take back.
Now, around what grade level?
Middle school to high school.
Middle school to high school. Oh, whoa, I'm thinking it's gonna be low grade. Oh, Debbie. Okay, yeah, that's true. From all ages, you know, thinking before you speak. Let's practice that, right? It seems simple because to us, it's easy for us. If we've mastered that skill, we don't always say what we think, right? Most of us wouldn't be here if we said what we thought all the time. We wouldn't get this far, right? So we know how to internalize and compartmentalize, but certain kids, they just say it. So if you teach them that skill, and if they ever do it, let's say you catch them, and this is where the connection piece and the communication piece is key. Because whatever you do with that child as a CIS person, it has to be communicated to the principal and the teacher. Like, the teacher has to know what's going on. So it's not a disconnect, because it can't be we're working on this social skill and the teacher doesn't know what social skill is being worked on. And so when the kid actually displays that social skill in a pro-social way, the teacher doesn't reinforce it. The teacher doesn't say, good job for, using the right words this time, or being kind, or thinking before you speak. I like that. It really lets me know that you're working on that skill and you're doing a good job. I'm proud of you. They don't hear that. So they end up reverting back to muscle memory, going back to just speaking their mind. All right, next. And reinforcement consequence. Where do you think you might need to use a reinforcement consequence? I've given some examples.
With like attendance.
So attendance means that a kid was absent a lot, and then chronically, and they start to come to school. Or tardy, yeah. You gotta celebrate it. I'm working with a principal now where he's trying to do that on his campus. Have like parties, make it a big deal when certain kids who have a chronic issue with being tardy and absent or skipping class. Make it a big deal, because what you focus on is what you're gonna get back in return. So those are reinforcement consequences. And in your role, you could think of ideas, not to say that you need to be the provider of the reinforcement. You can bring ideas to a campus. You are a resource to these principals, because as the data said earlier, most of you guys are called by principals. They need help. By the time a principal calls for help, to them, they've tried everything. You are an extension. Call system of care, we are the extension. Have you guys talked to CIS? CIS extension. System of care, have you guys connected with CIS? Extension. Have you guys called counseling services? Connection. So it's wraparound. We're all in this together. Collaborative greatness, like I talked about earlier. So don't think that it's just me by myself. You have other people that work in their individual pockets that come in with their specific skill sets, that when we merge them together, it makes magic happen. But we have to come in with something that's systematized, that's proven. Not research-based, but evidence-based. That's all restorative. And when we do that, people are going to want to send their kids to Springbridge. You know, Springbridge, they got a system of care. They got CIS people that do this. Parents start to talk. And our district becomes more, better. And restorative consequence. When do you think you might need to do a restorative consequence? Because if you have to restore something, that means that something was what? Broken relationships. Maybe there was what can happen in a classroom to break a relationship?
Conflict with the teacher, argument, some words the teacher don't want to be in his class.
Yes, right.
Kid don't want to be there. Another restorative is after a big crisis. You know, just let the kid know, like, hey, this happened, let's move forward. How can we move forward? You know.
Yeah. And you're right, because that escalation cycle is a restorative piece toward the end. When the kid is ready to receive it, that needs to happen. We can't have things happen and say, okay, it's gone, let's move on. No, you've moved on, that kid hasn't moved on. They're gonna come, they're still mad, they're gonna bring it again. Until you do something. Until you say what?
I went to the behavioral training.
Okay, yeah.
Who hosted that?
Instructional. Give me an example of an instructional consequence.
She has one.
Yes.
Interrupting in class.
Interrupting in class. That's perfect because that aligns with instruction. So if a teacher is giving out instructions and she wants you guys to do individual work and you're disrupting the class, you need to teach that kid as a CIS employee, how do you, and it seems basic, right? They should know. Obviously, they don't. They're not doing it. I know that you know it when you can display it. Not when you know it and you can't display it. When you display it, you know it. Because you know it and you're living it out, that now you've mastered it. Until I see it, I'm going to act like you don't know it. Just like if a kid doesn't know how to write their ABCs, I'm going to assume you don't know it because you can't produce it. If you can't produce that particular behavior in class during individual work, I'm going to teach you how individual work is supposed to look. How do I know that? I have to go to the teacher and ask the teacher of her expectations. So what are your expectations during individual work? Well, I want them to do this. I want them to do that. Blah, 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 blah. I'm going to take that information. So when I talk to little Johnny, when I have my little meeting with him, I'm going to say, this is what she expects. This is da-da-da. So you're going to have that instructional consequence. You could teach them how to do it in a private setting where they don't feel like they're being isolated or being highlighted in front of the classroom in private. Environmental. I'll give you guys examples of this earlier. When do you think an environmental consequence is needed? When what? When the classroom is organized? Cluttered, right? No access to certain tools or items. It can incur frustration when that happens. All right? Speed up. How much time do I have?
Okay,
30 more minutes?
3 more minutes.
For my part, right? Yeah, thank you. All right, group activity.
Here we go.
Yeah, I'm right on time.
Yes, you did, you're right on time. All right, good morning. This is the exciting part. This is where you guys are going to be active with us, more you than us, with what Max has shared with you guys. So we're gonna do an example for you guys. And then you saw those numbers that we placed on your table, like table 1 is Mateo. You guys are all gonna discuss and come back with this. Okay, the sample walkthrough case study. Jasmine is a 9th grade student who recently transitioned to high school. Okay, here's Jasmine. Yes, call for somebody. Over the past month, her attendance has declined. Just talking about that. Particularly on the days when she has English during first period. The English class requires students to read aloud and participate in group discussions. A few weeks ago, Jasmine stumbled over several words while reading in front of the class, and a few students laughed quietly. Although the teacher redirected the class, Jasmine appeared visibly embarrassed for the rest of the period. Since that incident, Jasmine has complained of headaches on mornings when she has English first periods. Her mother reports that Jasmine moves slowly in the mornings and often asks to stay home. On several occasions, Jasmine has arrived at school but has not reported to first period. Instead, she has been found sitting alone in the hallway or spending extended time in the restroom until second period begins. Her absences in English are beginning to impact her grades, and the assistant principal has expressed concern about the pattern of truths. We just discussed that. Okay, let's walk through this. What is the antecedent? Just shout it out. What do you think the antecedent?
She's moved to high school.
Okay, anybody else?
Felt embarrassed.
Felt embarrassed? Because this happens when? What is the antecedent? What happens before? You guys, all right. Let's see. Oh, hold on. Jasmine transitioned to high school. Absolutely. She struggles in English class during first period. She's embarrassed after stumbling over words reading aloud in front of classmates. She complains
complains of headaches in the morning before first period and requests to stay home to be late. That is the antecedent. A lot of times we find that sometimes teachers will say, I don't know why she's acting like that. So we have to zoom in very closely and study, like we just did this scenario, what is actually taking place? What do I think is causing Jasmine to react the way she is? All right, let's look at her behavior. Frequently arrives late to first period class. We may think she's just hanging out or wanna cut or talking with her friends. That is not the problem, because we just said, she's transitioned to high school, she's struggling in first period. She spends prolonged time in the restroom. That is appear, she's just not hanging out. Well, she could be, it may appear to be that, but it's the antecedent. And sometimes she skips first period altogether. All right, girl, you can click it. What do you think the consequence is?
Her confidence, self-esteem.
Okay, let's see. She missing instruction in her first period class, which is going to affect her grades. Grades and attendance are negatively impacted and reported absent, leading to concerns about truancy. Okay, and the response, who wants to?
And this response part is, y'all remember the ones we just discussed? Which response
Response should be there.
we'll go with this?
What response?
With the truancy stuff, with the not,
Environmental
response.
response. Environmental.
huh?
She said restore.
Restore, okay, somebody said restore, anybody else? Environmental?
Environment. Okay, let's see.
Survey says?
Connection. Yeah, because earlier somebody said something about skipping earlier, that went with connections. But I mean, that's the best consequence. Doesn't mean that the other ones don't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Because those things matter too. But this directly is a connection piece. Of course she's embarrassed in class, in the classroom, but primarily it's a connection piece.
Give yourself a okay. So what we're gonna do, you guys all have numbers on your table. We're gonna post some scenarios, and you actually have a hard copy if you can. We are giving you we're explaining it now. You have 5 to 7 minutes to read and do the ABC completion. And then we're gonna get up and share all our wonderful knowledge, because you guys are.
So all the resources that you have should be a scenario. You're also gonna have, a copy on the next slide is going to have the, QR code that you can use. Also gonna,
If you can scan it on your phone.
where you can look at the type of response.
So if you have table number 1, if you have number 1, scan number 1. If you have 3, they're not in order, we just found them.
Look at your table number and that's the one you scan.
Yeah, that's the one you scan. What is that your table? Yeah, you guys are gonna scan. Y'all got it.
No, I'm gonna wait.
Yes, ma'am.
So, as you guys look at this, you're gonna put it on the whiteboard. So you're gonna identify the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. So table 1, 2, 3, 4 all have one, but it's up there on the wall, or you can use this right here. If this is, do you think it's too big of a group that we should have them work? Oh, this whole group?
Yeah, she's done already.
Okay. And this whole group? So, no, 1, 2, 3, 4. We just need 4. Put the number up there. Yes. So you guys can use this one right here for number 3.
How does this affect a student who is energetic and eager to participate in class or during the whole instruction in science can frequently cause a limb from raising his hand, even when the teacher reminds him in class to do this first paper?
This is number 3. That's number 3. And you guys, this is number 5. Decide where you want to hang it
During a class discussion, another student might be sharing his answer. Caleb interrupted and spoke over the student to share his own thoughts. The interruption caused the other student to stop speaking, and several students became distracted by the distraction. Later in the lesson, Caleb again called out loudly without being called on. Although those responses were related to the lesson and demonstrated understanding of the content, his impulsive behavior disrupted the flow of the instruction and prevented the other students from participating. When redirected, Caleb appeared unaware of how frequently was interrupting others and seemed surprised when reminded of classroom expectations. He was able to follow directions appropriately for short periods but struggled consistently to apply his behavior
Eats is oats, eats is get, oats is avoid.
The behaviors that he keeps for the antecedents. The antecedent is that the kind of like so intelligent. So yeah. So what is that? It's a vitamin. Drink my vitamins. Okay.
Did y'all get eat? Or y'all get anything? Do y'all have Chris? Yeah, we all have. So what do we do? So, and the little QR thing, it says, what is the function of the behavior?
Yeah, and there's a time. He's just unaware that he doesn't seem like he's do it because he knows that. He's just really excited. He might be a teacher with you. Yeah. If anything, she should use that to her advantage. Use them out of the points at the board. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember I was a pointer at the you can be like the teacher helper since he's so advanced. Make this negative make it positive. But I know what yes, I'm beautiful. That would be I love other kids to also be part of, you know.
What y'all got over there?
This could be negative turning to a positive. Like instead of, you know, him being kind of like, oh, you're like, let's just like give him like a leadership, like kind of role, and be responsible. And they'll kind of do like the pointer, like everything. He is so excited and enthusiastic about it.
Involved him.
Including like making like the teachers assistant or something like don't worry, you know.
Like what happens in this scenario? This response is one of the responses that we talk about that you guys are going to
So they're gonna raise their hand, you're gonna point it out, that they're raising their hand, you sit down, and when you have a question, you raise your hand, and they're gonna point you back.
Yeah, this consequence with this. You guys come to the system afterwards, you can have a conversation.
Yeah, definitely got ADD. Yeah. And they took his bed. Today. That's why I'm asking. They in,
I have some.
do you have a timer? Did you set the timer?
No, we started at 10:15.
So how?
So we have 20 more minutes.
Oh, okay, so we're gonna have. But he could be gifted too, like he's yeah, exactly. I'm gonna take over like
Or maybe he just skip a grade.
Yeah? Maybe it's me in the, or he's in another class.
But you know, honestly, mostly it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's not really, it's all not really good with you.
I think we answered them, because you know, the ABC, we gotta write the ABC.
Yeah, we're right here.
They're right on that. No, they didn't write on that. Yeah, they're gonna write on that.
We gifted over the better. In and out.
Yes, for contact.
What is clear? What's clear?
I know. And then you have the R for the response.
I was saying that earlier.
Number three. Number three. Is yours eats or O?
I wanna get one here.
Make a smiley face. I do actually. What's up? Eyelashes. But the other side, that number three, did you ever get one on? Yeah, I looked on for an hour. I didn't know you don't know. I didn't even know. I didn't know that was
Like 50% of the time I present, 50% they do. I don't get.
and now because this one hurt. This one hurt.
That's why I got the win.
Anything to add to?
What was
That's the consequences.
the consequences?
Remember, guys, if you're confused, there's a difference between consequence and response consequence. The R consequence is what
The
you do.
consequences that he's disrupting the class.
And the regular C is what happens in the scenario. This part is the part you come in with the different.
Participate. You haven't done that. And then I just ordered one.
On the way out. I thought I had put a barcode. Maybe on the next slide.
That's why I gotta give that is.
Remember we said put it back, so they can remember what it is?
Yeah, that's why, why did we pick instructional and reflection as our consequence? Well, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
You are. You guys need to scan right here.
And if you guys want to see the different types of consequences, you can scan that QR code if you don't have a document to see the different consequences if you don't have one. That's
Yeah, that's your answer for C.
You have a minute left.
One more minute.
Well, the consequences, the consequences of the behavior is what it's talking about. And then the type of consequences are different. And then we have.
So, in your group, please identify a person that's going to present your scenario. So that means they need to read the scenario and they need to present it to everybody.
They're all pointing at it.
I know, I like this. Okay, how does that work? The last person? Yeah. So who's the last person? You have your scribe, you have your presenter, whoever's going to present, just identify that person.
This is a very engaging activity.
I did that on purpose. Yeah.
Okay, we're
That's
gonna
why
start
I had
with
them read
group
and stuff.
one.
You want to talk.
Cause they seem like they ready, they sit down first. Yeah, read the scenario out loud. Okay, so our scenario is Adele is to start with
We're ready for presentation.
Yeah, doesn't matter who we
Okay.
start with, yeah.
Number 3 is table, you had number 3, Marcus.
Wait.
Okay,
We're ready.
correct. All right, let's go.
All right, we need the rep from Marcus.
I'm going now?
Yes. So everyone give number 3 you guys undivided attention.
Do we need to read that?
Yes.
As the star student, look at her, she's smiling, she's ready.
All right, so we have Marcus. Marcus is a 7th grade student who has recently begun putting his head down during math class and refusing to start his assignments. When the teacher approaches him and offers help, Marcus shrugs his shoulders and says, I don't care. Or, I'm not doing this. If the teacher continues prompting him, Marcus will sometimes ask to go to the restroom and remain there for extended periods or request to see the counselor to avoid completing the work. Over the past 2 weeks, Marcus's teacher has noticed that these behaviors occur most often during independent work and after transitions into more challenging academic tasks. Marcus rarely engages in disruptive behavior towards others, but instead withdraws, avoids eye contact, and disengages from instruction.
So we said that this is, at this moment, probably more of him trying to avoid, so oats. The online one gave us some more information. It said that he had been, a couple months earlier in an apartment fire that affected his apartment. And then he is not getting a lot of sleep. So those are the antecedents. What we're seeing behaviorally is refusal, withdrawing, not making eye contact with people, maybe some anxiety or anxious behaviors we're seeing as well. And then the consequences to those is he's not completing his work, he's missing class time to go and ask to see the counselor and stuff. So his grades are most likely failing is what we're seeing as a consequence to that. We identified our response, this as a connection consequence related to avoiding. So we talked through, maybe some walk and talk conversations. We thought maybe some side-by-side conversations would make him more able to communicate what's going on. And some adult mentoring. And then also, we mentioned we probably want to ask about basic needs. Are you having trouble sleeping because you don't have a bed? So we wanted to add in that as well.
Good.
To really identify what's going on, how can we maybe see the problem together and then work towards a solution.
Okay. Now let's see what the survey says. Now, sometimes we may get a particular answer that's different from what they came up with, but it's okay. But we're thinking systematically, we're thinking with a method in mind. As long as we're applying a consequence, right?
Give y'all something.
Good job. All right, so let's see what the survey says. Okay, we said antecedent was, what does the antecedent say on there? Okay. Okay. You went into the part about the apartment fire, sleeping. Okay. What did the behaviors say? Is y'all's behavior aligned?
can't read it.
I don't care. I don't wanna do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah. The consequence, you guys put grades or failing.
Great job. Great, thank you guys, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, who has Jordan?
Who had Jordan?
Who has Jordan is number 5, number 5. Number 5.
That's them.
Okay, let's go, let's go. You're excited. You can post it up here on the door.
So we practice some flexibility and, you know, fixing things as we want.
You wanna come over this way?
Ours is, Jordan is a 7th grade student who frequently calls out during class discussions without raising his hand. He often makes exaggerated comments, jokes, or dramatic reactions that cause peers to laugh. When redirected by the teacher, Jordan may respond with, "I was just kidding," or "Everyone else was laughing." During independent work time, Jordan will sometimes leave his seat to talk to classmates or insert himself into conversations that do not involve him. If peers ignore him, he may increase the behavior by making louder comments, tapping on desks, or interrupting others' work. Over the past 2 weeks, his teacher has noticed that these behaviors increase when Jordan is not directly engaged by an adult or when attention is focused on another student. Jordan is academically capable and completes work successfully when he is engaged, but he appears to seek interaction through disruption rather than through appropriate connection.
Is this eats or oats?
This is gonna be eats.
Thank you.
He is
Good.
seeking attention, he's bored, he's understimulated, he just wants that connection and attention.
Okay.
And then we have, for B, we have, he's disrupting class, he's leaving his seat, he's interrupting others. We got C and R a little bit confused, but basically the consequences would be, discipline, is how we saw it. But, what we would provide as a consequence would be giving him some stimulation, some movement, doing some walk and talks with him so we can talk about what's going on, how to redirect his behavior, maybe what he can say to his teacher to probably fix that relationship as well.
So instructional. Seems like instructional consequence. Yeah.
And then we have a little bit of mentoring, which is also kind of side by side with walk and talk, and kind of reteaching expectations, so that
Okay.
instructional consequence.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Thank you. You can leave it. Great job. Okay, Mateo, number 1, Mateo.
Mateo.
We're doing this as a team, y'all.
You can bring it over this way in the center, so you're more centered.
Bring it over this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bring your Halloween.
Come on, Mateo, come on.
We're struggling to bring the ABC. What happened before we got?
I know, right?
Okay, so Mateo is a 3rd grade student who has demonstrated ongoing difficulty remaining engaged during his independent work. Over the past several weeks, his teacher has observed a consistent pattern in which Mateo begins assignments but quickly stops working when he encounters something that feels challenging. Instead of asking for help, Mateo will leave his seat, walk around the classroom, sharpen his pencil repeatedly, or attempt to talk to nearby peers. These behaviors occur daily and across multiple academic subjects, particularly during writing and math tests. When redirected by the teacher, Mateo will briefly return to his seat, but often resumes, leaving his work unfinished within 2 minutes. He does not display aggression or defiance, but appears unsure how to proceed when he feels stuck. Mateo's teacher has also noticed that he rarely raises his hand to ask for help, even when he is visibly confused. During group activities where adult support is readily available, Mateo is more engaged and able to complete tasks successfully. Although Mateo is capable of completing grade level work with guidance, his repeated avoidance behaviors have become a chronic pattern that interferes with his academic progress and ability to remain independently engaged.
So what happened right before the behavior is that he was given independent work. We assume there was probably some academic confusion. The behavior is he's leaving his seat, what we can see. He's walking around, he's wanting to talk to peers, kind of distracted behavior, sharpening pencil, stops working, looking for things to do instead of doing his work. The consequence, he is redirected, leaves work unfinished, and we're looking at this that it is oats because he is avoiding his work.
His work, right.
And an instructional response.
Instructional response.
Instructional response,
Great
good,
job,
good.
great
Good job, good job.
Thank you. So, Caleb.
Yeah,
Last but not least.
Yeah.
Last but not least. Okay.
All right. So Caleb is a 6th grade student who is energetic and eager to participate in class. During whole group instruction in science, Caleb frequently calls out answers without raising his hand, even when the teacher reminds the class to raise their hands before speaking. Caleb often blurts out responses impulsively, sometimes interrupting the teacher mid-sentence. During a class discussion, another student began sharing their answer. Caleb interrupted and spoke over the student to share his own thoughts. The interruption caused the other students to stop speaking, and several students became distracted by the disruption. Later in the lesson, Caleb again called out loud without being called on. Although his responses were related to the lesson and demonstrated understanding of the content, his impulsive behavior disrupted the flow of instruction and prevented other students from participating fully. When redirected, Caleb appeared unaware of how frequently he was interrupting others and seemed surprised when reminded of the classroom expectation. He was able to follow directions appropriately for short periods, but struggled to consistently apply the expected behavior independently.
So we said this was Beats because his attention, he's not really avoiding anything, so it wouldn't be oats.
Yes.
And then we said what was happening before the behavior, he was just high energy in his whole group instruction.
Mm-hmm.
The behavior itself was him not raising his hand, blurting out, sharing his own thoughts, and also some other attention-seeking behavior. The consequence was that like other students shut down and they become distracted in class and they don't want to interact in class at all. The type of consequence that we said would be good here is reflection and instructional. How we would do that in CIS is like talking with him, like how things are when you interrupt people. So whether it's role play and then we said like he may be on the spectrum or may need to be tested for gifted. So making that connection with parents as well, because it may not be that he's wanting to seek attention, but he's just too gifted in his class is not enough to keep him.
Okay, we're gonna pass it.
Yeah. These are, you don't have to scan these. You're gonna get this document. Everyone in here is gonna get this. So you don't have to scan this. You're gonna have it. I want you guys, I worked hard on it, so please use it, right? I want you guys to use it. Now, like I said, there's no perfect response consequence because behavior is layered. You know, it's based upon your interpretation and your perception, but you have to apply a consequence, a response consequence, right? Remember, consequence is not punitive. Apply something to the matter. Be the extra support that teacher and that admin needs. Sometimes the teachers don't have the time to sit with that kid. You have the time because you're coming there for that one specific child. So all these scenarios that you guys read, you guys said this earlier. That means when you come on the campus, you're researching. Your main goal is to research. What's happening in the classroom? Sometimes the student may tell you, sometimes they may not be totally honest. You may have to go back to the teacher to make sure that story aligns. Look at the referrals. Ask the principal, what happened on that day? This is how you gain intel. So the more information you have, you can apply knowledge and your skill set with the toolkits that we just gave you and apply a proper consequence. Because no longer are we sitting with kids just having conversations and talking about what happened and say just do better next time. We got to come with something and leave with something and plant a seed. And then we leave. It doesn't mean that the behavior is going to change, but at least you planted something, and when you meet again, you keep building on that. You keep building on that, all right? Thank you, guys. Yes?
I just want to add one thing. So we talked about this a few minutes ago. When we think about behavior is something that we can see, measure, and count. And I say that because maybe a teacher may sit, the kid may come to you because whether they're being disrespectful. We get that a lot. Can you measure disrespect?
No.
Can you see it? Maybe. but it depends on the environment, right? Because I call my mom by her first name at home. That's not, I'm not really. Right? In that household, that may be okay, right? In our setting, that may not be okay. So we have to clearly define. So really, like he said, be a detective. Well, he's disrespectful. Well, what does that look like and sound like to you? Is he using appropriate language? So kind of help drill down, even when you're talking to the kid. Why yell in class? Well, what are some things you said? Or just asking more probing questions so you can get down to help you identify the root cause. And try to apply some of what you learned today to your actual personal life. Trust me, it works. It'll help you memorize it and figure out how to use this in a real setting. I've used these restorative circles and interactions with my kids. I've gone through the ABC things with my family. And trust me, when you create a space where people can feel open without judgment or punitive measures, they're more likely to share things with you that you didn't even know. Because we all think we're perfect parents, right? Nah. Right? My kids were able to share some things with me that I didn't even realize I was doing. So I had to take a moment to be self-reflective, even within my team. I've done some things in my team like, I probably should have done it a different way, but being adult enough to come back and say, hey, I apologize, that only contributes to building more respect, a mutual understanding, knowing that we're all human. Kids are human and we're just having to teach them how to be better humans. So I just want to say thank you, team, for putting together such a wonderful session. Thank you for allowing us to